What's up guys, welcome to Dabrewski. Today we are actually putting the engine back together. Yesterday I got the head off of the block and took it to the machine shop. They resurfaced it, pressure tested it, cleaned it, turned out good. The reason you get them resurfaced, so they sit flat and not like this, where it's kind of like, you know, not flat. That's where you get your blown gaskets, that's where your coolant goes through, that's where your air goes through. It's just not good for anything. So what I did was, I checked the block. Here's the block right here. I had the block checked out. Well, I did it myself. I have a really straight piece of metal and some feeler gauges. And I went through it and it's actually super flat. What wasn't flat was the head. And the head wasn't like super badly warped like in the middle where it's like, it's kind of like a moon shape. What was happening is it just had a bunch of high spots and low spots all around the head. And looking at the old head gasket, you can kind of see where it had seeped through, like in between the cylinders it blew through, and a couple areas where the coolant was, so that's where a lot of my coolant was going. So I'm really glad I'm doing this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the ARP head studs. Essentially you put a little bit of lube on them and then you just screw them down until they bottom out. And then I'm going to put the head gasket there after I clean the block a little bit more, and then I'm going to put the head on there, put a little bit assembly grease and lube on top of the top of those studs where there's that spacer and the bolt. Torque it all down to, I don't know, I have to look at the torque specs again. I think it's 22, 55, 75, but don't quote me on that. I have to look it up online and then see. It's the ARP, whatever, standard. So that's what we're gonna do, so let's get into it. Okay, so on these, I think it's all the B series, or at least just the LS, the non-VTEC ones, these two middle studs or bolts are longer than the rest. I think they're, I'm going to say roughly an inch longer. So those two, if you're going to do this to this engine, don't be surprised if it's a little longer. Alright, so right now what I'm doing is I'm actually lubricating all the head studs before I put them into the head and drive them down to the bottom. This keeps it from stripping out and binding at any point and makes installation smooth. Another tip is when you're putting your head gasket on, make sure all your oil lines, or all your oil holes, coolant lines, everything match up. So on this head gasket, there's a square oil port, but it is, I believe, a low pressure spot. So that is not the same size on the head gasket, so that kind of just gonna go around. All the coolant holes look pretty good. I think we're good to go. I'm gonna put the head on. Here's the resurfaced head. It looks good. We're good. Now what I need to do is I need to take the cams off, so I'm going to take off these cam journals. It's really important to keep these all in the same spot. Put them down softly, put the bolts on, torque it down, tighten up the top, put the valve cover on. We're good on that. Okay, so I just finished putting the head on and all the head studs. I'm going to do is I'm going to torque it down one more time just to check it. Right now I'm doing it to 79 foot-pounds. That's the final sequence. It's all good. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the timing on the engine, and I'm going to put the cams in the right way. I'm going to lube them up quite well, and then I'm going to torque everything down on the top end. So I just finished all of the all the head stuff.
Tail's bleeding.
And then, so that's all pretty much done. But right here, I'm gonna swap out the oil pan because this one doesn't have like the sump return or whatever for the turbo drain. I welded up another one and got it all ready. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off the oil pan and then I'm gonna put the other one on. Alright, so I'm gonna call it a night. It's pretty late now. It's like it's like 2:30. I don't know what I'm thinking. I got all the engine stuff done. I got the head on, I got the valve cover on, I got the timing belt on. I did end up putting a new water pump on there and a new timing belt tensioner. The timing belt's still in good condition, so I'm going to leave that for now because it is a Gates, and the one I bought is like an aftermarket one. I don't really want to run it. Here's the engine. I cleaned up the block as much as I could with like my pressure washer. Turned out pretty good. Oh, and I got the new oil pan on too. I completely forgot to mention that. I went and welded that sump whole thing on there. I might spray that with paint before I put it back in the car. The head. It's crazy. This is like hot tanked and it looks the exact same before. We got the new head gasket in there, as you can tell right there. Got everything torqued down, got everything done. Made a huge mess out of the garage. Kind of just got everything laying around. But that's whatever. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna call it a night. Hopefully tomorrow we catch a break in the heat where it's like not 1,000 degrees outside, so I can actually do something to the car. I want to put the engine back into the car and start putting all the accessories on it. There's a few things I still need to put on, like, I don't know where it's at, the oil feed line. That's the one that feeds the turbo oil so it cools it and keeps it lubricated and make a drain. I thought about it a lot, and I really want to start the car, at least start it before tuning it, just so I can kind of warm it up a little bit. And I'm going to leave the stock injectors and the stock fuel pump, and then I'm just going to start it and let the car run and heat cycle a little bit. That's with the turbo and everything on there. I mean, it should be pretty good, but yeah, that's as far as I got today.